This is the Scarcity Studios YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And our sponsors at Alpha Claims and Hire Birmingham, the leading and best accident management company. Get a replacement car anywhere in 1 hour. I really appreciate you joining me today, and this news broke on Christmas Day, and it was about an incident that occurred at Windsor Castle where the Queen was. And more information has emerged to speak about the severity of what had happened. Shocking video footage was published by mainstream media that showed a man wielding a crossbow and threatening to assassinate the Queen in revenge for the 1919 AMRITSAR massacre. A 19-year-old male was arrested, and the latest information is that he's been sectioned under the Mental Health Act. The teenager scaled a spiked fence at Windsor Castle armed with the crossbow. And video footage obtained by the media shows him making the threats online that he sent to a friend on Snapchat. The man that was arrested and sectioned is called Jaswant Singh Chahal. This was 24 minutes before he was arrested by police in the grounds of Windsor Castle. But it's been reported that he was seen on CCTV roaming the gardens and the outer wall section, and he was later sectioned under the Mental Health Act. The video shows him wearing a black tracksuit and white mask, and he's thought to be inspired by Star Wars. One of the framed images of the franchise, Darth Malgus, is on the wall behind him, and he says that "I'm sorry for what I've done and what I'm about to do. I will assassinate the Queen, and this is revenge for everybody that died in the Jallianwala massacre by the British Army." Police at Scotland Yard confirmed they are investigating a video as part of a probe of the Christmas Day breach. They believe that it is the man that has been arrested, Chahal. They said that he calls himself Darth Jones, and a possible reference to the actor who voices Darth Vader in the original trilogy, James Earl Jones. Police confirmed the crossbow was found after the intruder was detained inside the Queen's grounds, but nobody entered the residence. It's believed that he used a makeshift ladder to gain access from a long wall, which the royal family used due to the proximity to the Queen's private apartments. This follows a recent security breach where somebody got onto the grounds of the Windsor Great Estate and tried to talk to Prince Andrew. The latest security scare occurred at 8:30 AM on Christmas Day, and the Queen would have been at Windsor without her family. Retired Superintendent Day Davis, the former head of the Royal Protection at Scotland Yard, said the incident again highlighted the very serious threat and the way that people are fixated with the royal family. They said 99% of attacks on royal family members have involved a fixated person or a stalker. There has been increased security around the castle since this security incident, and it also highlights the increase in mental health episodes during lockdown, and especially with young men as well. So hopefully this young man can get the help that he needs to get his life back on track, and at least he avoided doing something more serious and somebody losing their life due to his actions and the mental health. I found it interesting that he spoke about Amritsar. Amritsar is the holy city of the Sikh religion in India, and British and Gurkha troops massacred at least 379 unarmed demonstrators at the Jallianwala City Park on April the 13th, 1919. The majority of people that were present opposed the British government's forced conscription of the Indian soldiers and the heavy war tax that was imposed on the Indian people. A few days earlier, in a recent escalation of protests, Amritsar was placed under martial law, and it was handed over to the British General Reginald Dyer. He banned all meetings and gatherings to take place, and on April the 13th, which was the day of a Sikh festival, tens of thousands of people came to Amritsar from surrounding villages, and they was unaware of the rules that was in place. They came to the park where the demonstration was taking place, and Dyer's troops surrounded the park and opened fire without warning. They killed several hundred people and wounded more than 1,000. In a subsequent investigation, General Dyer admitted to ordering the attack for the moral effect on the people of the region. His troops continued firing until they had no ammunition left, and the British authorities later removed him from his post, but he did not face any war crimes. The massacre in the park actually influenced Mahatma Gandhi's protest that took place afterwards. The shooting lasted only 10 to 15 minutes, and by the time the guns fell silent, the park was littered with dead bodies, and the authorities never conceded that more than 379 people died, even though other critics suggest it was more like 600. It was Dyer's own testimony in an inquiry that actually made people understand the severity of the situation. He said, "I fired and continued to fire until the crowd dispersed. I consider this the least amount of firing." And he said if more troops had been at hand, the casualties would have been greater. The details of the massacre and Dyer's justification emerged months later and caused irreparable damage between the British government and the Indian nationalists. It was depicted in England in the House of Commons as a one-off sinister, and Winston Churchill at the time said, "This was an event of an entirely different order, and the tragic consequences that took place when troops collided with the civil population." Of course, the massacre had a massive influence on anybody that was there, and Udham Singh was 20 years old when he was present when thousands of people gathered in the park on the fateful day of April the 13th. The story of Udham Singh is actually quite confusing because at the time there was two General Dyers in the actual area, General Michael O'Dyer and also Reginald Dyer as well. Reginald Dyer was responsible for the massacre and General Michael O'Dyer was in charge of the Punjab at the time, and Udham Singh travelled across the world and ended up in London, and in 1940 he shot dead General Michael Dyer in the Central Asian Society in Caxton Hall on March the 13th, and it's commonly mistaken that he actually shot dead the other general, the general that actually committed the massacre, and not General Michael O'Dyer, who was in charge of the Punjab. And this is what I initially believed, and several publications actually stated this as the facts. Udham Singh did not try to flee after he shot dead the general, and he was sentenced to 21 years in prison, but was later hanged a few months later. His remains were handed back to India in 1974. So I thought this was a really interesting story, and also some historical mistakes that I think needed clarifying as well, and definitely shows the extent of the British influence abroad throughout history and how some history is heavily distorted, and it's very wise to try to read as much as you can. So really appreciate you joining me for this episode, and don't forget to follow me online as well as Scarcity Studios on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter and Facebook, and I'll be back again very shortly with some more news. Peace.